Good morning, everyone. My name is Ahmed Sabra. I'm here with my colleague Godwin Matthew. He's one of our application engineers based in Hyderabad in India. He's the technical support specialist and application engineer in India. So anytime you need support, you join and you can connect with him. And here behind the mic is Ahmed Sabra. I'm technical projects manager for the Middle East support based in Dubai. So for your information, in this webinar, you're gonna have access to a quick quiz because this is like a certified AVIXA webinar. So you can win a 1 RU unit that you can redeem for your CTS or CTSD or CTSI. So people who can who has CTS, they can just get this RU and you can claim it back to your AVIXA program. This will be downloadable. Once we finish the webinar, you're gonna receive an email with all the instruction to get access on the training and get the quiz after that. And we're gonna have some activities, so feel free to prepare yourself. And please, if you don't have the Tesira software, please make sure that you download it. So just go to www.biamp.com/download. Make sure to download the latest Biamp software because we're gonna play some time with the software. Okay, so the objectives of the AV networking TesiraCONNECT, we will learn what is the TesiraCONNECT, why we use TesiraCONNECT, and we're gonna get some basic idea how to design and to program the TesiraCONNECT within the Tesira platform. So before we start, I like to just review some of the terms that we're gonna use a lot in this webinar. We're gonna learn about the Avenue alliances, which is like a compliance for the AV industry. Any vendor will work with AVB. They should be Avenue certified, which is like an open organization that certify a switch or a gear to be like Avenue certified. We're going to talk about the system, what's the difference between the device list and the system list, how to program a system. We will talk about the server class device, and I expect people attending this webinar to differentiate between a server class device and expander device. The expander device does need a server class device in order to work. For example, if you have an EX mod or an AVB endpoint amplifier, AVB PoE, you will need a server class device to discover it. So we need to differentiate between what is expander device and what is a server class device. Okay, so the one thing that we need to learn, this is why we need a TesiraCONNECT. So if you question to yourself in the site in the past, you always you will struggle between having an AVB connectivity between your end devices. Like for example, if you have a TCMX, if you have an EXUBT, if you have an AMP 450 BP, you will need, for example, a switch, a third-party switch, AVB switch, and because this switch does not support PoE+, you will need to buy some PoE injector, adding them to the system. So if you look at this diagram, you will find like at least we will have 5 point of failure. So if this PoE gone, your system is gone. If this PoE injector is gone, your system is gone. If this PoE injector have a loss in power, your totally system, you're gonna lose the audio between the laptop. So you will have like multiple point of failure. So we solve that by having our connectivity box, which is the TesiraCONNECT 5. So you can connect all of your devices directly to one box, and you will have you don't have to configure anything. You just need to add this box, connect everything. The Tesira 40 will discover all the devices. You don't have to config the switch or anything. That's it. You just plug it in, and you are already set up to have a configured system. And if you are using the TesiraCONNECT D, the D version, which is enabling Dante on the system, you can receive and transmit Dante through the TesiraCONNECT, which we call it the media bridge. We will talk about in details during this session. So, and TesiraCONNECT basically it support the AV for Biamp, so AVB or audio video bridge, whatever you want to call it, but you're gonna have the connectivity, which is the audio and the video for Biamp devices. Okay, let's talk about the TesiraCONNECT family. So basically we have, for TesiraCONNECT, we have two main products. The TesiraCONNECT 5, which is designed to have a configuration-free network between the AVB only for Biamp systems, which we call it the plain switch. So if you have only Biamp devices, you can just plug all the AVB ports into the TesiraCONNECT and have a working system without the hassle in connect to a third-party switch and learn how to configure them and contact the IT people to configure your AVB, and they start to question what is AVB, what is TSN. So you will have a hassle-free connectivity between your TesiraCONNECT and your Biamp devices. The other version, which we call it the media bridge, which is the TesiraCONNECT 5D. Dante is well-known protocol in the market, and most of the third-party devices will have Dante protocol. So we provide the TC5D, which can give you a nice connectivity tool, freeless. You can connect with any Dante system through the TesiraCONNECT D. The D stand for dual network, so it accepts Dante. That's why we call it media bridge. So if you have a Dante input, you want to connect it to an AVB network, you can do that, and the vice versa as well is acceptable. So if you have an AVB network and you have a Dante server classified from Biamp, then you can bridge back from Dante from AVB to Dante. So let's say you have a Tesira 40 DAN, for instance, and you have an AVB amplifier. You want to use our PoE AVB amplifier. You can, through the Tesira DAN, you can bridge the AVB protocol into the Dante network as well. And we will see some exercises how to learn that. Okay, so we're going to talk about now the TesiraCONNECT common applications, when to use it, how to use it. So the TesiraCONNECT 5, the normal one, if you have like this, let's say this huddle room, you have two speakers with one TCMX microphone, our beam tracking microphone, and if you have an EXUBT, like you want the mute sync between Microsoft Teams or Zoom, you can just connect the USB port into your laptop and connect everything into the TesiraCONNECT 5, and you can have the connectivity from the AVB port of the VT4, and you will have a full system. As you can see, all the blue line are AVB. So all the AVB ports will be connected to the TesiraCONNECT 5. Remember that the 4 ports are PoE plus enabled, while the 5th port is not. So anytime you need to connect a server which is already powered, you have to connect it to the LAN number 1, which is PoE free. The next application that can be done is to enable Dante, for example, microphone. A lot of time, if you have like an RDL connectivity faceplate which is run over Dante, you have already a system which is running over AVB, but now you want to integrate Dante into your system. So what you have to do is only to change the module into TC5D. So you will have a Dante connectivity into your system, and you will get like the Tesira 40 DAN, you will get a 32 by 32 channels. So we support maximum in the TC5D up to 32 by 32 channels. So this is a good example to use the TC5D. Yeah, so the other example is if you have if you have already a Tesira 40 DAN, in this case, if you have an existing Tesira 40 DAN VT4, for example, and it is connected to your console, and at the same time you want to use the amplifiers, the PoE amplifier, which is over AVB, as I said, all the blue lines are AVB or the purple line are Dante. So in this case, conventionally, you will need to change the Tesira 40 DAN. If we don't have the TesiraCONNECT 5D, you have to change the Tesira 40 DAN and have another server I/O with a Dante card and AVB card. But the TesiraCONNECT make our life easier, so you can connect and bridge the Dante into your the AVB into your Dante network. So basically, you will start change the AVB into a Dante flow and connect it back to your Dante system. But remember, once you need to integrate AVB devices into your Dante server, then in this case, you have to split out the blocks of the Dante application and sync it in the Dante controller, because we're gonna basically the TesiraCONNECT will change the AVB into a Dante flow. Then this Dante flow will be received by the Tesira 40 DAN. We will see this in a live example as well.
Hey Ahmed, just wanted to take a minute. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
I just wanted to remind everyone that I'm also here in the webinar in the background. You can use the chat window in case you have any questions. I will catch them and either let Ahmed know, or I'll try to answer in the chat itself. And there's also a handout section in your console where you can download the PDF copy. So if you want to follow along offline, you can do that. Sorry. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation. All right. So let's now take a deep close look to the TesiraCONNECT 5 and the TesiraCONNECT 5D. So if you look to the TesiraCONNECT, you will find it's a 5-port devices. Remember that the ports from 2 until 5, they are 802.180 type 2 standard, which is capable of full 30 watt per port. So you can drive a 30 watt PoE plus device. Port number 1 is a standard port, is non-powered connectivity. So this can be connected to your server class device. Let's say you have Tesira 40 DAN, or if you have Tesira 40 AVB VT, you can just connect the AVB port to that desired port. The AVB is capable of doing 128 channel by 128 channel. which is basically equal to 64 stream, which is similar to the Tesira Forte. Yeah, you can have single cable and separated control mode, so you can separate the control from the AVB as well. We have the ability to do that. We can support single cable unseparated, which is can help us in the TC5, can help us to separate the control from the AVB stream. However, in the TC5D, we cannot we don't support a separated control mode in using the immediate bridge mode. So if you have a TC5D, in this case you will not be able to separate the control flow from the AVB flow. So we have to use it in this way. So in separated control mode, control and AVB are physically or virtually separated through the network. So you will have a VLAN for AVB and another VLAN for control. So you're gonna connect the AVB into port number 1, while the control into another port. However, in the single cable mode, you just need to have an AVB connection between the Tesira Forte AVB VT4, and you can just connect directly into the control network through one of the available ports on the TC5D. Okay, and we in the C5 and TC5D, they support what we call the bus chain, which is the correct terms for daisy chaining multiple switches. So the professional IT will call it the bus chain. So we can support up to 14 ports if you daisy chain or bus chain for TC5s. And also it supports star topology, and keep in mind that you can connect up to 4 units in total in that case. So if you have if you start chain 2 TC5s, you will get 8 port, while if you do it in 3 switches, you will get 11 ports. While with 4 switches, you will have at least 14 ports. Okay, so this is the dialog or the wizard and the network settings of the TesiraCONNECT. As you can see, you can in the control you can change the host name, you can change the IP address of the control port or the media bridge port. So if you have a separated network, if you need to separate the AVB and the control, then you have to be in the separated mode, which is enabling the AVB media in your TesiraCONNECT 5. We support the rapid spanning tree protocol by default. We support Igp Snooping. By default, it's disabled because this will be used by third-party traffic, for example, Dante, but by default it is disabled. You can enable it at your any time that any application that you have need Igp Snooping. Also, you know Sage View, so all the devices or the TesiraCONNECT family is monitored by Sage View. So you can monitor all the TC5s, upload the firmware, update the firmware, check the status. Any error happen in the device will report an email to your IT manager or your admin. And we have some nice tool that that can give us, if you have like a credenza and there is no enough ventilation, we can have a connection called extension that can extend the heatsink for your device and fix it underneath the credenza or a table or behind the screen, which give us like flexibility in installing the device in several applications. Okay, so let's explore what's the difference between the plain switch and the media bridge mode. So there is, as you could understand, there is two ways to connect the TesiraCONNECT and TesiraCONNECT 5D. So the first one is the plain switch. We will explore what is the plain switch. So in the plain switch, AVB data and control traffic only can be configured for the plain switch. You cannot have Dante while you are in the plain switch. It supports single cable and separate control mode. So you can have a converged network, so AVB and control on the same network, or you could have it separated network, which means that the AVB traffic is totally logically or physically separated from the network. Also, you will find that this is correct a device, but there is no block in the Tesira platform. So if you open the software, you will not you will not find a block that you can add it into your software. Yeah. Anyone have a question? I can hear someone talking. Let me mute all. Yeah. So you cannot have you will not have a block. So anytime you have a Biamp device, usually you will have a block dedicated to that Biamp device. So for example, if you have a Tesira Forte, you will drag a Tesira Forte and place it into your software. If you have a server I/O, you will add all the inputs and the output of that particular server I/O. So in the case of the TesiraCONNECT, you will not have a block. It is a connectivity box to your devices. So there is no block. You will be able to discover it through the software, through the device maintenance, but there is no a dedicated block in the device. Also, it's not visible in the control port. So as you can see, this is a snapshot from the device maintenance. You will find all the TesiraCONNECT connected to the system available and online, but there is no way to add them in the software itself. So once you have a system, if you remember, in any Tesira system, you will have something called device list, system list. So any system will have some component, some devices, so multiple server or one server. So you will find them listed in the device list. This system, for example, it can be like boardroom, meeting room, and once you click or highlight on that system, all the associated devices related to that system will be available. But you will notice that the TesiraCONNECT will not be associated to that device list, because from a system perspective is not required, because this can be connected to a third-party switch or any other switch as well. Okay, so let's move on into the media bridge mode, which can be supported into the TC5D only. So anytime you need a media bridge mode, you are allocated only with the Tesira Connect 5D, AVB, Control, Dante, AES67 supported by Dante can be implemented into the system. It does not support separated and control mode. Also, it is like the TesiraCONNECT. It support Igp Snooping. Also, it is a part of the Tesira DSP configuration. You will find that the TesiraCONNECT 5D is a part of your TesiraCONNECT like device equipment list. You will find it in the equipment list. Why? Because we're gonna bridge AVB into Dante in some of the cases. Also, you will find it. It is available in the control network for programming and the control of the hosted IOs. So if you select, for example, in this case, if you select a device, you will find it that it is available, and it have a system description and device description and a device ID, which is available into your system, because this device is bridging Dante in this case. So it will be like an expansion of your Dante network over AVB. So once you click on the system list, you will find that this device is associated with your system. So this system contains multiple devices. As if you have, for example, 2 meeting room with 2 server IOs, you will find that if I program a system with 2 partition or 1 partition, but it does have two Tesira 40 associated to that system, then you will find them listed over here. Same apply with the TesiraCONNECT D 5D. So you will be able to see it online with the devices as well. So let's focus on the TC5D bridge mode. It has a built-in AVB interface and Dante interface. So any port you look at now is AVB and Dante capable. And the nice thing, it is automated. It can automated. It can detect the Dante or AVB automatically. So anytime you connect a device with AVB connectivity, it will automatically detect and configure this port to be the AVB part of your system or the Dante part of your system. And it provides a media bridge to link the Tesira DAN and the Biamp AVB devices. So you can look at it from that perspective as well. So if you have a device, you will need, if you have a Dante device, Dante enabled device, you will need to add 2 inputs to the transmit and the receive input. And also the nice thing as well, we can monitor the AVB and Dante audio traffic through the TC5D itself. So the TC5D is intelligible enough to have some peak meter or RMS meter, so we know that we have received the audio signal and we can monitor this signal into our software. And with Godwin demo, you will see that visually on the software. Okay, so jumping into the TC5D media bridge mode, we cannot provide AVB interface for example, third-party AVB devices. So if you have a third-party AVB devices, which is support the standard, the IEEE 1722.1 for third-party network, TC5D does not support explicit AVB, because anytime you have AVB devices from Biamp, AV for Biamp, you will not need any explicit blocks. You directly connect an input and expansion mode, for example, into your server without the hassle of connecting inputs to output, without a third-party software to connect input to output. But if you need to have explicit AVB from Biamp, then in this case you will need to have a third-party AVB normal switch, not the TC5D or the TC5. Remember, the TC5D does support Dante IOs, does support meters block, but it cannot support DSP blocks. So you cannot assign a high pass filter into the TC5D or a mixer or a level control. Only meters and Dante explicit block. So all of that is not supported. So let's go to the channel count, which is a question that always come in. So channel counts we can have on the AVB IEEE 802.1, we can have up to 128 by 128 64 maximum streams. So you can have in total, whether which is run out first, if you can have 128 by 128, or you can have up to 64 maximum stream, because a stream can be 64 channels. So it depends how you want to configure your system. But with AVB, you will not need to really care about that, because the software will do it for you. It will take all the assignment between channels, between the field devices and the server devices automatically. Also, we have the Dante interface, which is 32 by 32 channel or flow. Also, because it is a Dante chip, it supports the AES67, which is capable by Dante. But remember that it's whether you're using AES67 or Dante, you cannot like have both of them at the same time, which is the same channel counts as the Tesira Forte rack mount. So if you memorize what is supported in the Tesira Forte, it is the same applicable for the TC5D. Okay, so we have the TC5D media bridge mode. All the 5 ports are AVB Dante enabled port. The ports are auto detected. So anytime you plug a laptop, for example, it will detect that this is a control port, is not flowing any Dante channels or AVB channels into your switch. If you have AVB port, so let's say you have an AVB VT4, once you connect it to port 1, for instance, the TC5D is smart enough to know that this is an AVB traffic. And once you have, for example, a Dante microphone, you will connect it to the system, automatically also will add this is configured as a Dante flow into your system. So you don't really care that you need to plug the device in a specific location. Cool. So all the ports, as we said, auto detectable, can be configured, whether it's AVB and Dante, whether it is AVB only or it is a mix of both traffic. So both systems are valid to do so. So for example, system 1, the difference that the first device is AVB traffic connected to the port number 2, and we need to connect both of them. For example, you can just, the system is smart enough to do the traffic as well between the two systems. So you can uplink Dante and AVB all together as a one uplink between the TC5D, which is very nice. TC5 can be attached into a larger Dante network or a larger AVB network. So let's say you have an existing AVB network or an existed Dante network, and you need to start flowing Dante between the system or the AVB. Then yes, this is applicable between the switches. But please remember to go to Biamp supported page, which is the AVB capable switches. Make sure if you find your switch there, it will work. If not, then we cannot promise anything. So please make sure to refer to Biamp AVB capable devices, so you can have your all the tested switches by our support engineers around the world. You will find it over there. Last thing, you can add the Igp Snooping, which can support sorry, I skipped this slide, just a minute. Yeah, which can support non-AVB multicast traffic. As you can know that some of the vendors, they support multicast traffic. For example, they can run video or audio through the multicast Igp Snooping, or like a CobraNet, for example. Then you can just enable the Igp Snooping in those devices. So as a review, only Biamp Tesira AVB devices can support it in the media bridge mode. Third-party AVB devices are not supported. Non-supported does not support the control network mode, so you cannot have a separated control from the AVB. So you should have a converged mode. Dante and AVB supported when only to TC5D or TC5D to a TC5 or TC5D or vice versa, so can be supported only. So you cannot have a third party switch in between. You need to have a direct connection between both of them. The TC5D will only host the AVB and Dante IO blocks, and meters, but will not host any mixer, level control, etc. All right. Yeah. If you can just give me a second. I'm just.
Is it my turn now? I think so.
Yeah, this is your turn. Let me stop my sharing.
Yeah.
So I will move it now to Godwin to continue talking about the system design of the system. Let me stop my sharing. Yeah, you should be now good to go, Godwin.
I think you'll need to make me presenter as well.
Okay.
Okay, so let me share my screen. Yep, I think you can see my screen now. Let me make sure that I have all the views in place. Okay, so hopefully all of you are following along so far. We will put into practice whatever we learned in the slides thus far from Ahmed. I will talk about system design using TesiraCONNECT. I will focus on the TC5D, right, the media bridge aspect. The TC5 by itself is pretty much like a switch that you can, a PoE switch that you can plug in devices and it all works. There's no special configuration needed besides the network settings and IGMP snooping and those settings. So let's look at system design using TesiraCONNECT TC5D. So one of the first things that you should keep in mind when approaching system design with TC5D is that you should look at building a AVB based system rather than a Dante based system. And you may be aware that we offer a range of DSPs, right from Tesira Server with AVB and Dante cards to Tesira Fortes with AVB interfaces and Tesira Dante as well. The reason I'm saying this is because AVB is more efficient when you consider Biamp products. It is a native protocol, and indeed it's less expensive as well. Dante is licensed, of course, so whether it's Biamp or third-party devices, your cost will go up slightly as the number of Dante channels increase. So, and of course, our compiler offers automatic routing, so you don't have to manually set up anything. Once you create a configuration and you upload it, it's pretty much good to go as long as your network is in place. With Dante, you need a little bit more work, so that's definitely the recommended approach. Of course, you can use a Dante-based design as well. Both are perfectly valid. When you want to use the TC5D or TC5 as simply a plain switch, you can just plug in expanders of various kinds, microphones, a PoE amp, XUBT, any AVB expander can be connected to the TC5. So in this mode, it's pretty much passive, right? All of the work is happening between the expanders and the DSP. The TC5 really doesn't have much role here except just routing traffic. In media bridge mode, of course, you have to use the TC5D, which has the dual AVB and Dante interfaces. So to this AVB system that you're setting out to design, if you wanted to add Dante, you can simply replace the TC5 with the TC5D and then connect a Dante device directly, or you can connect an extended network which carries Dante traffic. Okay, so just to go back to my point, you can see that you have a bunch of AVB expanders and the DSP is also AVB. So all of the, like the top portion of this diagram is automatically taken care of by the compiler, and you will also save a little bit of money. And then the only routing that you will need to do is the devices at the bottom. So it just reduces your work when you choose the AVB in case of Tesira devices. And if you're using a Tesira server, that's our big DSP with the 3-rack unit device with the cards, if you're familiar with it. We do offer a DAN1 card as a interface option. And we wouldn't really encourage using TC5D with the Tesira server, because one would expect that if you're using a Tesira server, the system is already quite complex. You might likely need a bigger switch. 5-port switch may not really suffice. You can definitely use it, but we feel that it's better to use an integrated solution like the DAN1 card, which by the way offers 64 by 64 Dante channels, rather than depend on a TC5D. For smaller, like single room or small to medium systems, TC5D is definitely perfectly valid. Now we can also look at using TC5D in existing Dante systems. So as I said before, fresh new designs, think of going all AVB and then adding a TC5D for Dante. But there can be situations where you have an existing system where previously it wasn't possible to take advantage of, let's say, the XUBT or the AVB amp, the PoE amp. Now you can do that. You can simply retrofit your existing Tesira Dante systems with a TC5D, and that will allow you to use all of our expanders. So XUBT, PoE plus amps, expanders. The one thing that you cannot use is the parlay microphones. None of the parlay microphones can be used or retrofitted into a Dante system, and the limitation is technical. There is the requirement of a back channel communication between the parlay mic to the DSP, which we can only implement with AVB as of now. We have not found a way to do it on Dante. So that's something that we don't support. But all other expanders that are not mentioned here are also supported. So except parlay microphones, all Tesira AVB expanders can be integrated into a Tesira Dante system. In some cases, we may need to force the software, the Tesira software, to consider a Dante solution. So by default, the compiler is built to give you the most efficient and most cost-effective solution. So I don't know if you've had situations where the compiler, when you created a file and you compile it, the compiler tends to suggest some mix of equipment. And the reasoning behind it is to offer you the most cost-effective solution for the layout that you've built. And keeping in line with that, when you try to do that with a TC5D, it will tend to suggest an AVB option. And so therefore, you will have to force the compiler to consider a Dante option. In this case, you'll need to add a Dante block into the configuration and fix that block into the unit. So if there's just one DSP device, which is unit 1, if you allocate it to Dante block unit 1, then the compiler is forced to consider a Dante solution. Sorry, you'll have to give me a few seconds. I'm having a little bit of a disturbance here. I will be back in a few seconds.
Remember, guys, I'm here on the chat window. If you have any question, just please feel free to text it.
Sorry, one of the disadvantages of working from home is that you have these unexpected, visitors who ring the bell, and my dog got a little upset there. Apologies if you heard some disturbance. But coming back to the slide, you may have to force the compiler to fix a certain Dante block in the file to make it suggest a Forte DAN instead of a AVB, and that's something that we'll see going forward in slides that Ahmed will cover. Okay, so let's talk about topologies now. Of course, just like any other network switch, the TC5D and TC5, while they are built to work with only Tesira devices mostly, they do have certain topology schemes that we recommend. So first is in just plain AVB mode, where you have a separate control connection and separate media connections. You can have up to 4 TC5 or TC5D in a bus chain configuration. So you can see in the diagram, the control port is connected to a separate network. Then you also have the option of building a star configuration, same rules. Control is separate, media is separate. And this is only supported in AVB, right? So you can see that the DSP is Tesira Forte AVB. So that's something to keep in mind. We cannot do this with Dante systems, and I'll just explain that to you in a couple of seconds. When you're using the TC5D in bridge mode, you have to go with this configuration. So the difference between previous configurations and this one is that the control connection, as you can see, is part of that TesiraCONNECT network, right? This is because the TC5D now participates in your Tesira file. And when you're uploading the file from your software, it's loaded onto the DSP as well as the TC5D. In previous configurations, it was passive. It didn't need the configuration. It was pretty much just in plain switch mode. But in media bridge mode, it contains that Tesira configuration that you build, and hence the control connection has to be part of the TesiraCONNECT network. Of course, the DSP is in single cable mode, meaning the port on the right is the AVB port that carries both control and AVB traffic, and that's why the control port is not required anymore. And in fact, that's what most people use. Just ease of use. You don't need 2 separate connections. Just use one connection to the AVB port that takes care of your control link as well. And it can be extended to a star configuration. And when you're dealing with the pure Dante system, where your DSP is a Dante device, of course, the control port now has to connect into the network. Unlike AVB, we cannot do control traffic over the Dante protocol. That's why we need separate connections of control and Dante back to the TesiraCONNECT network. So you can do both daisy chained and star configurations. Okay, so pretty straightforward, simple enough. You can apply the same concepts of the networking that you've been using for other switches to the TesiraCONNECT as well. One thing to keep in mind is that in all the slides you saw only 4 devices, and that's what we support. We support up to 4 TesiraCONNECT devices in a network. And I've mentioned before that you can connect into an extended network as well, and then we don't really count those switches. Just that in a system, if you're using a bunch of TesiraCONNECTs, we support up to 4. I want to quickly cover the TC5D port roles, right? Now, the TC5D is unique because it has those dual interfaces, the AVB, Dante, and then it also deals with other traffic. Now, if you know something about these media transport protocols, right, whether it's AVB or Dante or CobraNet or other protocols that you might have heard of, they do require dedicated resources on the network. So whether it's in terms of the VLAN and the bandwidth and the QoS settings, they require a high priority on the network. So no matter what happens, no matter how busy the network is, this media or real-time media transport protocols are not affected. So that poses a challenge when you have both AVB and Dante on the same system, because Dante requires high priority, AVB as well requires high priority. Of course, being a AVB switch or device, the TC5D does prioritize AVB over Dante. So how does the device deal with all of this? And that's through port roles. Of course, with no AVB or Dante device, it's just a simple network port, just treats all traffic the same. If you connect it to an AVB device, now that AVB device can be a Tesira DSP, AVB expander, or just a third-party AVB switch, Avenue certified switch, whether it's Netgear or Cisco or Extreme, the port takes on the AVB role, where that port has all of its resources and settings configured to be optimized for AVB. Same thing happens with Dante if you connect a Dante device, or if you connect an external network which is carrying Dante traffic, then the port gets configured for, or I should say optimized for, Dante traffic. We do support a mixed mode where it's doing both AVB and Dante, but the big flag is that it's only supported between Tesira devices. So as I mentioned, both AVB and Dante being real-time protocols require the highest level of resources, bandwidth, QoS settings. So there'll always be, obviously be a conflict between AVB and Dante. Currently, we can only manage that between Tesira devices where we can, kind of manage both AVB and Dante traffic side by side. This may also work with third-party devices, but you will see that there'll be occasional faults and some streams may not work. I'm talking about Dante, especially multicast streams, because it gets deprecated in favor of AVB streams. So some Dante streams like unicast streams may work, multicast streams may not work. So it becomes unreliable. So we don't recommend using AVB and Dante on the same link to a TC5D unless you're using another Tesira device to do that. And currently we do that only between TesiraCONNECT. So, and I should say Forte X as well. So the Tesira Forte X, one of our newer products, also has AVB and Dante in it, and it can handle sending AVB and Dante on the same network link to a TC5D. So let's look at that in a little bit more detail. How does this work? How does AVB plus Dante on the same link work? If you see the schematic on your screen, you can see that there's a Dante room, and there's a TC5D that's linked to a Tesira AVB network. In this case, it's an extreme switch, and there is a Dante console, a mixing console there. And unfortunately, this will not work because the Tesira, the extreme switch is an AVB device. So it has now configured that port on the TC5D to be a AVB port. So we cannot guarantee Dante performance in this kind of a setup. So how do we deal with this? We can modify this by adding another TC5D or TC5. It can be either. So because these are both Tesira devices, we know exactly how to manage AVB and Dante on the same link. So therefore, this works. And of course, you can extend that external TesiraCONNECT to a bigger AVB network, as well as you can connect Dante devices on it. So this is one approach. This does mean that you'll need to add another TesiraCONNECT device if you wanted to have both AVB and Dante come in to the Tesira Forte Dante room. But let's say you didn't have that option, then you can consider creating VLANs, right? So on that switch, on that AVB network, if you create a VLAN and disable AVB on it so that Dante gets prioritized, and then you link that back to a separate port on the TC5D, then that second port on TC5D becomes a Dante port, and the first port becomes an AVB port. So this is also a valid configuration. Now the TC5D and TC5 both are built to be very simple appliance kind of device. We didn't want to create a managed switch where you get into the console or you get into the web GUI and fiddle with a bunch of settings. We've tried to make it as close to plug and play as possible, and that's why you have these. I don't know if I should say restrictions, but yeah, so these features that need to be implemented in this fashion. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now, that brings me to programming with TC5D, and I'll hand it back to Ahmad, who will take you through the various steps and some activities to get you working on the Tesira software with TC5D. Ahmad, you there?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Let
All right.
me
So
share my screen.
let me stop the presentation from my side, and I'll have to make you the presenter.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So before I start, I just want to, if all of you have the software, please just raise your hand so I can know that all of you have the software. If you don't have the software, I can give you some time to download the software. Yeah. I can see like major of you have the software. All right. So programming the TC5D, like any other server class device, the TC5D is part of your equipment list. As I told in the previous session, this is a true only when TC5D is used as a media bridge. So if you are not using the TC5D as a media bridge, then you will not find it in the device list once you have a valid system. Please feel free to download the software while I'm explaining, so you will get into the exercise. This is very important that we see your collaboration in that in order to give you the RU once we finish the session. It will be added, the TC5D, it will be added simply in the equipment table. You will find it over there. It will be part of the infrastructure devices. So it's not, you will not find it as a server class device. You will find it as an infrastructure device. As you can note on the snapshot from the equipment table, you will find that we need a Forte, for example, an infrastructure device, and a PoE device over here. The Tesira compiler will automatically add a TC5D if you have a Dante AVB bridge in the layout. So anytime you have a system, once you hit compile, automatically will add the TC5D into your system. But remember one thing, that the compiler is always smart enough to get the less expensive classification of the component. So once you have a system, it will force and try to get you the less expensive device. So if you have a certain application, you might do some of the things manually, like fix in the unit as a true, to make sure that your system is compiled with the application that you want. So if necessarily, that the TC5 can be added to the table manually. So once you have a specific system that you want to work it out, you can just add, simply go to the equipment table, add a device selected as infrastructure, and make sure to select the TC5D. Or you can just, for example, force the compiler to have the Dante block to be fixed in the unit, to force the compiler to choose the TC5D, not, for example, a Tesira Forte Dan. And this is very important, because sometimes if you need you to use the TesiraCONNECT, for example, the TCMX, our beam tracking microphone, because we cannot bridge the beam tracking microphone into your Dante. So if you have a Tesira Forte Dan and you have a TCMX or a TTM, you will not be able to send audio through the TC5D into the Tesira Forte Dan. You need to have an AVB, but at the same time, you need to have access into the Dante network. So this is a good example to have a TC5D in this case. So programming will be start by going to the network settings, assign the control network. You have the port settings, you have the AVB interface settings. Sometimes you need, if you have long distances, you need to change the AVB peer delay time threshold value, or to match to the switch configuration if you have an integrated system with AVB switches. You can have access into the Dante interface settings, but as a monitoring only. You will not be able to change the IP address of the Dante. You will need to do it in the Dante controller itself. So you will be able to change the host name for instance, but you will not be able to change the Dante in this case. You have access to MAC addresses, which is very important for the IT because of the security reasons. A lot of enterprises, they will ask you for all the MAC addresses connected to your network. So those MAC addresses are available. You can take note of them and hand it over to the IT people. The programming of the TC5D is very simple. You just add like this layout. You have some AEC input. We have this, in this case we have AVB VT4. You just add simply a Dante network. If I hit compile in this case, I will get this output. I will have a Tesira 5D. A Forte AVB VT4 and an AMP 450 BB. So you have this amplifier and you have the Tesira Forte ABV VT4. Or if you add a Dante block into your system, automatically it will add TesiraCONNECT 5D. Before TC 5D, once you have a Dante, then it will add a server with a Dante card and AVB card because of this connection, and you have to do a lot of things manually. But now you just simply add a Dante block into your system, and it automatically will assign one TesiraCONNECT 5 into your system, and that's it. But you will notice how come like this blue lines coming from a Dante input, because this is like we say that the blue lines is an AVB media into your system. So, and this is true because this is coming from unit number 2. Unit number 2, if you look downstairs, it is a TesiraCONNECT 5D. Then the TesiraCONNECT 5D will bridge the Dante into AVB. So we'll assign the channels from Dante into an AVB channels. So we will get an AVB out implicitly from the TesiraCONNECT 5 into our system. So this is something to remember and understand. Or if you have like this layout, let's say you have a Dante system, we don't have an AVB amplifier. Simply once you hit compile, you will the output window will associate that you need in this system a Tesira Forte DAN VT4. If I want to connect an AVB amplifier, let's say that we have a nice room with a VT4, but it does not have an amplifier, I will add an amplifier, and also I need a Dante input. So simply you just add in the equipment layout and infrastructure and assign add a unit, which is the TC5D, and add the amplifier and assign them into the unit, so you can make them fix in the unit. So you will allocate each and every block to fix in the unit. Once you fix it to unit number 1 and compile, then automatically will add a TC5D, and the file will compile successfully. As you can see, this audio of the AVB amplifier should be assigned by the Dante controller. So to make sure to send the audio from the TC5 from the 40 DAN, we need to send it over the Dante network, go to the Dante controller, assign the flows between unit 1, which is the Tesira 40 DAN, and unit 2, which is the TC5D, and assign them both together to make sure that the audio is bridged from AVB into Dante, then back to the AVB to the amplifier. But remember, this way it cannot work with smart devices, which is like the beam tracking microphone. Other endpoint, AVB endpoint, it's doable. And this is because the integration between the AEC and the beam weighting between the microphone and the Tesira Forte AVB. All right, so now let's do some activities over here. So if you in your handout, if you look to your handout in this slide, in the slide of the student activities, you will find a here link. So you just need to click this file, and I will give you some minutes to do that. And please, once you do it, just raise your hand. Just click here into this link. It will download a file. You will find a bunch of files like this ones: student activity 1 and 2 and 3A and 3B. Okay. I can see some hands up. I'll give you a couple of minutes. Please download the file. If you don't have, if you have any problem, please text Godwin. He will reply to that.
So while that is happening, I've got a few questions here. There's a separate questions tab. So someone asked, did you say Zoom is also supported for mute sync? Yes, indeed. So we support mute sync for Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Google Hangout, and with the Cisco codecs with some special connections. And what's the next questions? Can one TC5D be used over two fortes and be part of both systems? Yes, indeed. So you can make TC5D part of bigger Tesira systems, whether it's two fortes or 10 fortes or two servers, it doesn't matter. So all of our Tesira devices work with each other. There's no limitations there. A port on a TC5D have combined roles, example Dante and control, to another normal switch like a Cisco SG350. So I think the question is whether you can have both Dante traffic and control traffic on the same port. Yes, that is possible. For example, I think the Shure mics do Dante and control on the same physical interface. So that's something that we certainly support. So any normal traffic with both AVB and Dante is okay. So there's another question. I'm a little new to AV, but coming from network and dev background, could you point me to any app note why Dante is different? Is it the PTP version, or what other things are different for a network switch, which is AVB capable? That's it's not an easy. I guess I don't know if there's a link that can explain that. Ahmed, do we have something which compares Dante and AVB? I don't think so, right?
No, not literally, but we can say that Dante is like a private protocol by a company called Donate, while AVB is an open protocol by IEEE. So the one who made Ethernet standards and all the network standards in the world.
Right.
AVB can handle more channels, 128. Dante can, the maximum chip I think can handle 64 channel.
I think there are newer iterations, but of course, as the number of channels goes up,
Yeah,
your cost increases quite significantly.
exactly.
Just as an example, if our DAN one, which does 64 by 64, is more expensive than our AVB card, which does 256 by 256.
Exactly.
Was it 240 or 256? I forget. Sorry. Oh, so is it 420 by 420? I'm completely
No,
blanking now.
you can have up to, if you have a server class with two AVB card, you can have up to 820 by 820.
Correct. So each card does 420 by 420.
Yeah, 420 by 420, exactly.
Correct. Yeah. So that's and another thing is that the Dante protocol uses PTP version 1, whereas the AVB protocol uses PTP version 2. And for AVB, all devices need to be AVB aware. So whether it's not just the end devices like the DSP and the expander, even the
Yeah.
switch network fabric has to be AVB capable. In case of Dante, it's more agnostic. You need to do a little bit more work on the networking side, creating VLANs and QoS settings and things like that. But only the end devices need to be Dante capable.
I recommend our last webinar, the AV networks, which explain the different protocols. I can send this link later on to the questionnaire. Our last webinar.
Right. There's another question. Why can't you create equipment list and it designs a system from that? And you could do that actually. You can go into the equipment table and simply add gear there. But that may not give you the desired results. I think the design should focus on what inputs and what outputs you need. And at that point, if you just hit compile, the compiler then just figures out whatever is the most effective way of implementing what you've designed. You can, of course, go into the equipment table, add gear manually, or in the software, you can fix certain blocks to certain types of devices. So that becomes a little more complicated. So, but there's no automatic way where you simply add equipment in the equipment table and it just comes up with something. You still have to put in your DSP blocks and create a valid configuration. I'll just quickly cover the other questions. What about clocking in these mixed systems? Who should be the master or any precautions? So in case of the TC5D, it does sync to an external clock. So it's pulling its clock from the it's pulling the clock from the AVB system, if I'm not wrong. So it is automatic. Once you add the TC5D, it pretty much fixes how clocking is done within the system. In case of other systems, there is an option in the software to assign Dante or AVB as the master. I think I'll show you in the Dante controller what exactly is happening with the clocking.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm on 316. I can't. Yeah. So you have to be on the latest version of the software because these files have been tested with the latest version. So it may not be possible to open it in 316. And there's no way of going back. Once you've opened a file in a newer software version, you cannot open it with the older version. So you can quickly download, update. It should take you a few minutes and you should be able to open it. Sorry, Ahmed, go ahead.
I don't have any comments, so shall we start? Do you think it's enough time for them to download the software?
I think we should check with the audience. Raise your hand if you have the file ready. Either way, we have to continue now.
Yeah.
Very less time. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so basically you will let me share my folder screen so you can know what to do. It's not that big deal. And so once you open the file, you will find you can unzip it in a directory that you can know. So you will open the first file. So once you open the first file, it is the configuration of this layout. So you have an AVB VT, you have the control port converged with the system. So you have an EXUBT and AMP 450. And what you need to do basically, just simply hit compile. So if you go there, if you can see the screen, you have this layout. We have the VT. We have some Dante inputs coming into, let's say, these are microphone coming to our AEC with the EXUBT connected to all. And you just simply need to hit compile. So once you hit compile, what is the configuration output of the system? So as you can see at the output level, let me maximize that. You will find that it is asking because the compiler will always look for the less expensive system. So it will choose the AVB VT, which is something you have added. Oh, let me pin it. So the TesiraCONNECT 5, because I have added a Dante, some Dante flows over here. I have the EXUBT because I have added the EXUBT into my mixer. And I have the Tesira AMP 450. So simply, one way, if I go to the equipment table, systems equipment table, I will find that all the devices are added into my system automatically. Now, the one thing you have to do at the site, just to assign the host name with the desired devices. That's it. So as you can see, we have bridged the Dante flow into our system. I hope this is making sense. Okay. So the next thing is if you open the second file, the question that we want in this to be a Tesira DAN based system. So we don't have an AVB VT, we have a Tesira DAN. And if we compile this system, which contains only EXUBT plus a Tesira DAN, so we need a mute sync device, which is the EXUBT, to make sure that our Tesira DAN VT can we send the audio from AVB device into our Dante device. So I will ask you to open the second file. So simply, I'm having here the second file. So right now I have opened the second file. Let me drag it into my main screen. So in this file, as you can see, there is an EXUBT. We said that if in order to get a Dante flow from an AVB flow into a Dante 40, for example, you need to have explicit block, which is what we have done. If you look to all blocks, this one is assigned automatically. Anyone with a question mark, that's mean let the compiler decide whether this device assigned to a specific layout. So if you just simply hit compile, what you have noticed, if you simply hit compile in this device, in this layout, you will notice that the Tesira DAN have been changed into AVB. Although I want to have a Dante connection, but because the compiler will always look to the less expensive device. So, but in some cases, you already have a Tesira DAN. So we need to force the compiler to have a Tesira DAN. So the solution that we can do is just simply assign one of the devices into the Tesira DAN. So we can just simply assign this layout. If I go right click, properties, and it's showing here. I would just assign this into unit number 1 and fix it in the unit, then compile. Then automatically the system now knows that this is a Tesira DAN because I forced the system to have it onto the first unit, which is my Tesira DAN. And since it's a Dante block, then there is no way to have a 40 device or a server class device to have a Dante without adding the Dante port. So in this case, we have a system which have a 40 DAN VT plus a TesiraCONNECT 5D plus the EXUBT. So right now, if you notice, we need to assign 2 flows from EXUBT AVB into the Dante, then from Dante input, which is assigned to number 1, into the system, so to return back the flow into our system, plus the other way, which is the output of the EXUBT. So it will go into a Dante output assigned to number 1, And this block, as you can see, is assigned to number 2, which is the infrastructure unit, the TC5D, returning back into an AVB network. So in this case, our system have been compiled to do two things: AVB to Dante and Dante to AVB. I hope it makes sense. So this is question number 2. We have forced and allocate the TesiraCONNECT, the compiler, to have the VT done into our Dante block. So in this case, we have the right allocation of the Tesira40 Dan VT plus the TC5D. I hope it makes sense. The last question that I have for you is number 3, which is having this layout. So let's say we have a Tesira software. We need the Tesira software and the Dante controller, and to compile it with this one. So we have the EXUBT plus the Dan VT. And in this case, we need to place an AMP 450. So how we can do that? So we need to have a digital AMP in 40. So let's open the third file, which is the 3A. So I'm loading the third file, which is the 3A. So in this case, we are going to add an AMP 4055. So we have two cases. So first case, we have just simply the amplifier, which is the A46H, which is just an analog amplifier going to this side. If I compile, you just please hit compile. Just quickly, if I hit compile, you will find that the system automatically is having a 40 Dan with the TC5D as expected. But now let's go to the next question, which is if I want to replace the AMP 460 by an AVB amplifier. I made it ready for you, but you just have to run the fourth file, which is the 3B. But think about it. I just need to replace the analog amplifier with an AVB amplifier. I'll give you some second to think about it. So remember that you can add a PoE amplifier. In this case, this will be 2 channels. We will delete these ones and add the PoE amplifier. But do we need to have this direct connection, or there is something we have to do in between? So because we have a Tesira40 Dan, so we cannot have a direct connection. So these should be explicit to another block, which can be found in the last solution. So you have to add a Dante output, a Dante input. This will be assigned to number 1. This will be assigned to number 2. And you can just simply hit compile. So anytime you have an AVB to Dante bridge, you need to go through explicit block. If you have the server class is a Dante. If you have AVB, if you have AVB, if you have AVB block, if you have AVB block, if you have AVB class device, then you don't have to do anything. You can just directly connect a Dante input into a server, into your matrix, into your block. That's it. So this is the output of the device. You can verify that by going to the equipment table. And now the system is capable to do Dante over AVB over Dante through the Tesira Forte DAN. So once the answer will be just add AMP450p, add a Dante IOs, one input to one output, one input, and connect the nodes between the TesiraCONNECT 5 and D. That's it. If you want to verify your work, just open the 3B file. All right, so let me now hand it over to Godwin, so you will have some fun with the live demo system. He already have a setup, so he can show it to you into your system.
Okay, so you hopefully can see my screen now. Let me see. Yes. So I do have a demo setup, and it looks something like this. Not exactly, but similar. I have a Tesira Forte AVB VI instead of a VT4, and I've got a Tesira Forte DAN VT instead of an AI, and a TC5D, XUBT, AMP450p, all of that is the same. There is, for Dante source, I have a virtual sound card running on my laptop, but it's the same laptop that's also running the Dante controller, and somehow that doesn't work too well together. And you know, I may have some challenges. Hopefully I have overcome those, and I will be able to show you a perfect demo. So to begin with, what we'll do is we will look at the Tesira AVB system, where I'm going to bring in Dante audio, and in the second one I will show you a Tesira Dante system where I can add the Tesira AVB expanders, right? So let me get out of here and bring up the first demo, that is a Dante device on an AVB system. So quite a simple layout here. I just have a matrix mixer that is connecting my Tesira Forte VI blocks. So it's simply the default blocks that I get. So I've got a VoIP receive, I've got the AC reference, and VoIP transmit. I have added a XUBT single channel mode. I have also added a couple of channels of AMP450p. The output block is unused at the moment. And towards the left, you can see that there is a Dante input block that has been added and connected to the Forte device. And the file is already pre-compiled and everything. So you can see that this Dante input is assigned to unit number 2. And curiously, you'll see that this meter is also assigned to unit 2. And unit 2 is, in fact, the TC5D. Let's see if I can do a quick compile here. Or I can just show you the equipment table. All right. So we have the TC5D, that's unit number 2, remote expanders, and Forte is unit number 1. So the Dante input, when I compile, as the compiler does by default, it assigned the Dante input to unit number 2, and the TC5D with the latest update supports hosting meters. So you can actually meter the Dante signal right at the TC5D, and then once it comes into the system via the bridge, via the Dante to AVB bridge, you can again meter it and make sure that the audio is actually flowing in the Dante network. Because we may not have visibility when we're dealing with the Tesira system as to what's exactly happening in the Dante network. Something goes wrong, we may not know whether it's a problem on the Tesira system side or the Dante network side. So that's why the ability to host meters within the TC5D is important. Okay, so that's the system, and at this point I can simply head into the equipment table. I've already assigned the serial numbers of my devices here. They're all running on the latest firmware, and I can simply hit send. All of the blue lines that you see in the config, they're all representing AVB traffic, if you were wondering. Hit yes, start all. All right. So here, everything seems to be loaded up, and the system status, it shows red, right? So one of the devices is not happy, and that's because we still have to route the Dante audio from the Dante device or network into your AVB, into the AVB side. So for that, what I'll do is I will first start up my virtual sound card. If I already have it running, this doesn't seem to work. So that's why I have to do it while setting it up. Hopefully, all of you can still hear me. It can do weird things with the audio devices. And I will head into my VLC app and set up the app to send audio over Dante. So this is the Dante device that the Dante driver has added. And I will go into my, so that's my Dante source essentially. And I'll go into the Dante controller, and hopefully I can see. So this is my laptop and the TesiraCONNECT Forte. So I have, this is serving as a receive block, right? So I need to go into my TesiraCONNECT, and I have named these two channels as TC5D RX1 and RX2, and I will expand my laptop option, and I know the first two channels are assigned to be the source, so I will simply connect those two. Everything goes well, it should come up with a green check as it does, and I should be able to play something here, hopefully. And yes, so I do have audio coming in, and it is also on the AVB side. Okay, so that's pretty easy, pretty simple. When you're integrating Dante into the AVB system, you create your Tesira file as you would normally do, and when it comes time to add a Dante device, simply add the Dante block, compile the file, and load it. And the only thing remaining at that point is to go into your Dante controller and set up your routing as you would like. All right, so let me see if there are any questions. Okay, no questions yet. Okay, so that completes the demo for a Tesira AVB system with Dante device. I will go ahead and unroute this audio. Okay, so that's unrouted. And oh, actually, I should show you clock status. So you can see there was a question about how media clocking is handled. And in case of the TesiraCONNECT, it's set to enable sync to external. So meaning that by default, the clocking that is being used is the internal AVB clocking, and the TesiraCONNECT syncs to the external clock, which is the AVB clock, right? So here in the Dante controller, the TesiraCONNECT that you see is the Dante side of the device. And in the software, in the Tesira software, we are seeing the AVB side of the device. So when it says enable sync to external, that means that whatever Dante clocking is happening on the TesiraCONNECT is basically getting its clock from an external network, which is the AVB network. and therefore it becomes the master for the Dante network. Okay, so let me disconnect, and I will go ahead and clear this configuration. So it takes a bit of doing to clear configuration from both the connect and the device, DSP device. Okay, so that's one demo. Let's go to the second one, which is uh, more slightly more complicated. It involves a little bit more work, and that is adding AVB device on a Dante system, right? So I have a Forte DAN VT, which is what I've added. So unit number 1 with its various blocks is actually a DAN VT, and I've got AVB expanders, and I've got Dante input blocks. Now, one thing, as Ahmed had showed in the previous session, was that you do need to fix one of the Dante blocks as or fix it to unit 1. If I remove this, then and I compile the file, it will default to using a Tesira Forte AVB instead of a DAN. So to force the compiler to consider, to ignore whatever it's been set up to do, and to consider a Forte DAN, you need to fix one of the Dante input blocks to, as you can see, fixed in unit true, to the DSP. And that would give you this result. So Forte DAN, TC5D, AMP 450p, and XUBT. So it's all ready to go, ready to load. So I will, before I do that, let me stop this Dante sound card. Again, I have to do this because both the Dante controller and the Dante sound card seem to not like each other too much. So let me go ahead and send this config. Okay. So the file is now loaded, and as Ahmed had explained, when you're using a Tesira Forte DAN and you want to add AVB expanders, you have to create a bridge, and that bridge consists of a Dante output on the Tesira Forte DAN, so unit number 1, and a Dante input on the TesiraCONNECT side, which is on unit number 2. And you don't really have to do anything here once the compiler knows that it's dealing with a Tesira Forte DAN DSP. So there's no AVB interface available. It will assign these blocks accordingly. So it has automatically assigned Dante output to unit number 1 and Dante input to unit number 2. And between that block and the AVB expanders, again, you can see these blue dotted lines that represents the AVB stream. So AVB stream is going from Dante converted into AVB and sent to the AVB expander. And on the input side, we have a XUBT, which is coming in as AVB, and the TC5D, which is unit number 2, converts that into an AVB stream that goes into the DSP. Okay. So that's now loaded. Now, if I look at the system status here, again, a bunch of complaints. The Dante flows are inactive, so that's something that we'll have to correct. And before I do that, let me just go ahead and start my Dante virtual sound card. Okay, I'll start it, and I'll head into my Dante controller. Here I can spot all my devices. So now I have, let me close this. The input, the receiver blocks on my TesiraCONNECT. So I'll go into my TesiraCONNECT here. So it's already labeled. The channels have been labeled when the block was added, and it's receiving audio from my Tesira Forte. So I will route the matching channels. Comes up green, so that is done. So there are 3 channels on the output, right? So we have 2 of these and 1 of this. And on the input side, we have it's a receive. So I will receive 2 channels from my virtual sound card. So that's my PC. So channels number 1 and 2, and sorry, not this. And then I will also receive 1 channel of audio that's coming from the XUBT via the TesiraCONNECT into my DSP. So that completes the routing. And hopefully if I select my audio channel, play the song, it should show up audio coming into the system. And the system status is also green, everything is happy. The clock status doesn't really change. Again, the connect is the master clock on the Dante network because it's set to sync to an external clock, which is the AVB media clock. So as you can see, it is a little more involved just because of the way Dante works. That you need to fire up the Dante controller. You need to carefully label your channels so you can easily identify them and route them carefully so the right channel is going to the right destination. And yeah, once you've done, you're all set at that point. Let me see if you have any questions. Okay, anything else that I can think of? I don't think so. Let's look at the network settings just to show you it's running the latest firmware. Connect, and let me go to the network settings. So this is something that you've seen in the previous slides. The port settings where you can set up IGMP, RSTP. Control network is where you can enable certain services which are disabled by default for security purposes. But if you wanted to enable Telnet or SSH, you can do that. So that concludes the demo. Hopefully that was clear, all of the steps that I took. Now these things are also explained on our support website, support.biamp.com. It takes you through stepwise, so I'm sure you might forget certain details. So all of that is documented on the Cornerstone website under TesiraCONNECT TC5D. Okay, let's get back to the presentation. All right, so that's okay. Now let's talk about the certain support tools that we have on the TC5D. We have some TTP commands that you can use to troubleshoot the TC5 and TC5D. And these are, some of these commands can also be used on the Tesira Forte DSP as well, but particularly more in case of the TC5 and TC5D. You can get information on the network, you can get information on the timing protocol, the PTP info, but more importantly, you can power cycle remote devices that may be installed in the ceiling by using the PoE enabled PoE enable disable command. So and of course you can get the AVB information via MSRP info. You can get Dante information. So this is great for troubleshooting. If it's, especially if it's part of a larger network, to see what's going on if there's any problems with the audio streams. So this is what the syntax looks like: device get/set command, and then the applicable attribute. Attribute could be port number 1 or a range of ports 1 through 4, 1 through 3, and so on. So these commands are also available in the support website. If you go to the command string calculator, you can build exactly the command that you're looking for. So that's some of the support stuff related to the TC5D. So I've been talking about all of the things available on the support website, and these are all linked here. Hopefully on your PDF, you should be able to click on these links and it should take you directly to the relevant article. I highly recommend visiting the TC5D article just as a backup resource whenever you're building a design or programming something with the TC5D. And we have other things like Zoom Room solutions, Microsoft Teams solutions, which utilize the XUBT for mute sync. Okay, so that's all of the resources as far as support is concerned. I'll also explain that to get a proper a certificate, you will have to head over to the training website. If you are attending today and you registered for this session, you will be able to access the quiz on the training website, training.biamp.com. It also allows you access to the full course. Of course, you don't have to take that course now. You can simply directly attempt the quiz. And once you pass the quiz, you will unlock your certificate. The course materials and everything that's available, so you can do a review. You can obviously use the handout that we have here on the console. You can download it under the handout section. And there is no time limit, so do it at your own pace. If you haven't registered yet, you can sign up immediately. Use the invitation URL that you might have seen in your email. And if there's any trouble, be sure to contact websupport@biamp.com. And for whatever reason things don't work, you run into some roadblocks, just email either me or Ahmed or both, and we will give you access to the quiz. If you are not interested in the certificate or the CTS renewal points, you're just happy with whatever you learned today, you're good to go. There's nothing more you need to do.
All right, so I think that's it. Thank you everyone for attending, and we hope it was useful.
Yes.
We will end the session now.
All right. Thank you, everyone.